Hi, this is Bill Raymond, and in this video, I'm going to show you the bare minimum you need to know to get started using GitHub Pages. So let's get started. Just a reminder, I did create an overview video of GitHub Pages, so you should probably watch that first. If you've ever seen one of my videos, you know that the description has all the links to the various timings throughout this video, so go there if you want to skip ahead. To get started, we're just going to create a basic repository, a brand new repository. I'll click the plus sign and choose New Repository. And then I'll just type my-repo, and I'm going to initialize it with a README file, and click Create Repository. There, so here's our README.md file, and this is a preview of it right here. I can edit this and add more text. This is a markdown file, hence the MD extension. And you can see there's a hashtag there that says my repo. That's just making this a heading 1 style format, which means that the font's larger and more bold. I can come down here and say, welcome to my repo, and I can also say something like, 1, don't forget to check this out. 2, don't forget to check that out. Okay, I'll just go ahead and save this and commit it to the master branch. There, you can see we used a little bit more markdown. Notice when I typed 1 and 2 in the text editor, it was aligned with the word welcome. But Markdown recognizes that this is a numbered list. If you want to learn more about Markdown, there's a great GitHub guide called Mastering Markdown. You can search for it, and I'll provide the link in the description. As you can see, it lists out all sorts of examples of how to use text, lists, images, headers, and so much more. Now at this point, the README file is just a README file. It's something that displays on my page. Now let's turn it into a web page. First, head over to Settings, and then scroll down. And at some point, you're going to find GitHub Pages. And it's going to say, what's the source? And you can choose the master branch, the master branch/docs folder. And interestingly enough, it doesn't have a GitHub Pages one. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later in the video. But we're just going to choose the master branch. And once I do that, a URL is created. And you can see that right here. So I'm just going to copy this URL, and I'm going to go back up to my repo. And just so it's easier for me to find that URL in the future, you can see it says no description, website, or topics provided. I'll just click this little edit button here and put the URL for my repo right there. And there we go. Now I have the link that I can open up anytime I want, and it's right at the repo page. I'll go ahead and right-click this and open it in a new tab. As you can see, the My Repo page is now a web page. Now I want to point something out here. Look at the URL for my repo. It's github.com/billraymond/my-repo. If I go to the web page, it's billraymond.github.io/myrepo. This is a web page that's on GitHub's content distribution network that should load very quickly for anyone, no matter where they're looking at the page in the world. Now sure, I have this readme.md file, and it's displaying the information about my repo, but this is just for my repo. What if I want a different home page for the github.io site? So let's go ahead and create a new file, and we'll call that index.md, and I'll just do a hashtag welcome index.md exclamation mark, and I'll just go ahead and commit that new file. Now you'll notice sometimes when you're using GitHub that the page doesn't display right away. And you might be wondering, why do I have to wait? Well, don't forget, every page is going to be compiled. In this case, it's going to go from Markdown to HTML for you. But then it also has to go up into the content distribution network, the CDN. And sometimes it can take a little while. Sometimes a few seconds, sometimes a few minutes. But sometimes it can take even longer, depending on how large your site is. But anyway, what I want to do is point at something out so you can verify when it's done getting it up there. You can see we have the new index.md file. And when we did that, you can see that there's this blue bar here that says the latest commit is 7F57CEA. Well, all that's telling you here is it's a unique identifier for the creation of that index.md file. And so if I come up here to this environment link, I'll click on that. You can see there's that 7F57CEA, and it says that it's active. And if I click on View Deployment, I can see that new page. Now, if you clicked on View Deployment and it didn't show that, just refresh your browser. You can see I actually had a test version up earlier, and so it just went ahead and refreshed with the new text that I added. So just refresh your browser, and now you'll see that new index.md file. So that View Deployment did the same thing as if we went to the code and clicked on this link right here and open it up in a new tab. There, okay? So when you create the index.md file, GitHub says, okay, I won't display the README, I'll display the index instead. Now you might be the type that likes to work with HTML and not work with markdown. You can do that too. Let's go ahead and create a new file, and we'll call this index.html. This is kind of a web standard. Any website that you go to where you don't type in the full URL defaults to index.html on almost every website on the internet. So here, instead of creating the markdown language, I'm going to do the same thing, but using HTML, I'll type h1, welcome index.html. And I'll do a /h1, and I'll commit this. There we go. So now you can see we have a readme.md, an index.html, and an index.md. So let's go ahead and open up the link to our page, and you can see right now is saying welcome index.md, but don't forget you have to refresh sometimes. Now notice that the entire page changed. Now it's not using that formatting that we used before, it's actually just displaying standard HTML. And that's why that text went up here and it wasn't in the center. GitHub, with their markdown files, kind of created a basic layout for you. Now all of the layout is defined by you when you use the index.html, or in fact any HTML files. Now what I just showed you is a very important concept, and I want to make sure that you fully grasp what I just showed you here. If someone goes to the URL you created and doesn't type the file that they want, like /index.md or readme.md, it's going to default to one of the files on your GitHub repo. And it goes like this. This is the order. If it sees an index.html file, that's what Git displays. If it sees an index.md file, then it will display that. And finally, if all that's there is a readme.md file, it will display that. So it definitely goes in this order. So if I got rid of the readme file, then it would look for the HTML first and the MD. If I got rid of the HTML file, it would then first look for index.md and then look for readme.md. Okay. So that's the priority order of what pages get displayed as the default page for your website. Now let's go into the settings for our repo again. And I want to dig a little bit deeper into this down here where it says choose a theme. So when you choose a theme, there's a number of themes that come out of the box with GitHub Pages, and you can select those themes. There's only a small handful of them. Of course you can create your own, but I'm just going to go ahead and choose one. I'm going to choose Time Machine. All right, and that's what the page is going to look like. And so I'll go ahead and select that theme. And there, if I scroll down here, just to make sure that it worked, you can see here it says your theme is currently using the Time Machine theme. Cool. So let's go back up to the repo and let's check out the website. So I'll just right click on here and open it in a new tab. It says welcome index.html. Where's all that nice formatting? Well, it turns out that since you created an index.html and that's a default page, GitHub said, well, that's fine. If you're going to do that, then I'm assuming you're trying to create your own special site that's not based on the theme. So if we want to use that theme, we're going to have to come back here and delete the index.html file. So I'll go ahead and click on this, and I'll delete it. There, the index file is deleted. You can see there's our latest commit 46011DD. And again, if I come over here to environment, I can see what's going on there. The 46011DD just actually went active. Now, just so you're aware, this is using that Jekyll technology. Even though we're not necessarily purposely using it, it is all based on Jekyll. They're not mutually exclusive. One of the things is that sometimes it will say that the page is active, and it might just take a few more minutes before you can see it. But at any rate, let's come back here to the repo. And remember, index.html is the very first page that GitHub repos look for, or GitHub Pages looks for. And if it doesn't see that, it will look for index.md. So now hopefully, when we open up our page here, open in a new tab, and refresh, we'll see that theme. And there's our theme. So if you're going to just use this sort of themed pages area, then you're going to have to start with like an index.md file instead of index.html. The next thing we're going to do is take a look at adding a page. So we're not going to build an entire website, but I just want to give you the general concepts of how to do this. So let's say that instead of just having that index.md file, we want to have an About Us section. So I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call that about.md. And this is just going to say h1 in brackets, about us, and ending h1 brackets. And then I'll just go ahead and type, here is some info about me. Okay, and that's all we're going to do on this page. I'll go ahead and commit that file. I'm going to go back here to the index.md file, edit it, and create a link to the about file. So I'll just say, I have to do brackets. Okay, so inside of brackets, I'll just say about us. And then in parentheses, this is using markdown language. It'll just say about.md, and I'll go ahead and just commit those changes. You know, while I'm at it, I'll actually go back to my repo and I'll edit the about.md file, and I'll just say, again in brackets, back to the home page, and then I'll type index.md in parentheses and commit that change. Again, it might take a few moments for this to refresh, but let's just go ahead and go back to our repo and open that in a new tab, and I'll refresh the page. There's a About Us link. I'll click on that, and you can see the new page uses the formatting for that selected theme. And then I can just go back to the home page. So far we've been working with a repo that is brand new, but what about an existing code repo? I'm going to click on this one here called Code Repo. You can see it has a README file explaining how to quickly set things up, little disclaimer. You can also see that there's a whole bunch of code in here. So I don't want to just go and start filling up this root folder with a whole bunch of files. I could, but I probably shouldn't. So instead we're going to create a new folder. And I'll just go ahead and create a new file here. And I'm going to create a folder called docs. And I just did a slash there to create the folder. And I'll just type index.md. And this one's going to say, welcome to index.md in the docs folder. And I'll commit that file. Now, it's not enough to just have the docs folder. I can use the docs folder, but I am going to have to go over here to settings and scroll down and then say where the source is. And you can see it says master branch / docs folder. And once again, I'm just going to copy this URL to make my life a little easier and head back up to the repo. And once again, I'll edit this header information and paste in the repo URL so I can easily access it. So I'll right click on here and open the link in the new tab. And there you can see, welcome to the index.md on the docs folder. Now there's one other place where you can store your GitHub pages, and that's in a gh-pages branch. So let's go ahead and create that now. I'm going to create a new repo, and this is going to say using -gh-pages. And I'll go ahead and initialize this with a README file and click Create Repository. Okay, so here is our new repo. If I come down here to Settings and scroll, you can see in the GitHub Pages section, there is no GitHub Pages set up. There are no GitHub Pages set up. So you can choose master or master branch / docs folder. But remember I said you can use this gh-pages branch. Well, in order to use that, you need to first set it up. So let's come back here to our repo. And then what I'm going to do is come over here to branches, and I'm just going to create a new one called gh-pages. There, it was just created. And you can see that readme.md file is actually there in the gh-pages. Now remember, we've always gone to settings to set up the page first. But what's interesting is if we come here to settings and scroll down, you can see GitHub Pages was already set up. The source was already selected, and you can come over here and see that there's a gh-pages branch already selected. So just be aware, if you create a branch called gh-pages, it kind of goes live automatically. So I'll just open this page up, the URL up, in a new tab rather, and you can see there it is. Okay, so you can edit the site just as you normally would, specifically on that gh-pages branch. Now I just showed you how to do everything on GitHub, but of course you can do this locally as well. And for example, here I'm using Visual Studio Code. You can use your favorite editor. I'm just going to go ahead and clone that last repository we worked with to my desktop. And open it up. Now before you start editing away on your computer, make sure that you are doing your work in the right location. For example, I'm going to go ahead and just create this new contact.md page. And I'll say #contact us. Okay, so that's just a simple page that I saved. If you are using the docs folder, make sure that you're creating that contact.md file in the docs folder in the master branch. If you happen to be using the master branch, then you're just fine. You took care of it. But remember that this particular repo that I just cloned, it's actually using the GH-Pages branch. That means if I just leave this contact.md file here, then no one's going to see it because it's in the master branch. And you can see that right here on the bottom left-hand corner of Visual Studio Code. So fortunately, even though I saved the file, it's still untracked. So I still have an opportunity to get this into the right branch. I'll just do a Control-Shift-P, Command-Shift-P on the Windows computer, and I'll just do Git, and then I'll choose Checkout To, and then there's that GH Pages branch. And you can see now I'm in the GH Pages branch. I can see that in the bottom left-hand side. And I can now do a commit. Added about us file. There we go. And now I will sync this up to GitHub. And I'm just watching this happen down here to make sure that it finishes the changes. And once that sync occurs and everything's up onto GitHub, you'll now have the ability to go to the URL. And so I'll just type contact and press enter. And there's a contact us page. Now there's one last thing that I want to talk about regarding Jekyll on this video. If you'll recall, I mentioned that there's this technology called Jekyll that's building your site in the background. Well, let's take a look at this. Here we have this contact page with this nice link here saying this is the page and the contact us text that we put in there. If I change this from contact to contact.md, you can see the original file. And it truly is just a hashtag with contact us. And if I right click and choose view page source, you can see it's just that raw text. Now what I'm going to do is go back and take a look at this page, right click and choose view page source. Now this is interesting. What it's done, what Jekyll has done, along with GitHub's help, is it ran and it actually built all of our MD files for us. And it converted them from markdown into HTML. You can see this says HTML here. And you know Jekyll's been working in the background because it has some Jekyll text here at the top part of our document. And there's our H1 contact us text. Again, everything's been converted for us. In following videos, I'm going to be talking about how you can use Jekyll to create your own site. Everything I've shown you so far is kind of just plain vanilla GitHub Pages, but which might be just fine for you, but you're probably going to want to do your own tailoring to make the site look the way you want it to. And that's what we're going to cover in future videos. Thank you for watching this video. If you want more like this, please like, comment, and click the bell to support my channel.